Here's where we are sitting, nope, we're sitting with 4 commissioners. And so we'll let, just so everyone knows that a 2-2 decision is a negative vote. You have to have, you're good, you're right on time. Still saying that. So that every, it's 2-2 is a loss, you have to have 3-1 for a yes. And so if anybody wants to put theirs off, they postpone until next time. They have the right to do that. With that being said, let's move to the decision summary from February 7th meeting. Are there any issues on page 1? Anything on page 2? Page 3. And page 4.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the decision summary of February 7th, 2024 as written.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Boycourt, a second by Commissioner Speeds. Let's call for the vote. Commissioner Speeds?
Aye.
Commissioner Boycourt?
Aye.
Mr. Corson?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. So, moving right along. The first item of business is old business, Brad and Lisa Beebe. We have Danny Racine and Zach Smith representing.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, and I guess we will, is there a staff report or anything this time to go?
The staff report remains the same
Same
as
as last time?
what was previously provided to you all. I think there was an additional submitted comment letter that was uploaded
Yes.
to Granicus in relation to this application as
Okay.
well. Other than that, staff's just here and available to answer any additional questions that you all have.
Thank you. You will announce yourselves and begin, please.
Zach Smith, Danny Racing with Lane. On behalf of Brad and Lisa Beebe, and please recall we were before you last month seeking site plan approval for a farm-based recreation use. And we felt at that time, and still feel today, that we demonstrated compliance with all the technical requirements of the code for that use. I think that's a point that at the end of the meeting, the Planning Commission actually acknowledged. Nonetheless, the commission did seem to have some concerns about whether or not our application was consistent with what you described as the intent of that code. And so for that reason, I think the commission wanted a little more time to consider it and give us a little more time to consider if there's anything that we could do to sort of address those concerns. And I think Mr. Council sort of described it as, I think he wanted to see it work, but needed to see something more. And we weren't clear on what that something more was. And I would say in terms of the intent of the code, you know, our client purchased the property, looked at the code, saw what options were available to him. This is something I can do. This is what I want to do. And he wasn't trying to sneak anything by. He wasn't really aware of the discussions that took place back when the code was enacted. He relied simply on what's in the code today. And I would hope and expect that the county would, you know, notwithstanding what may have been the intent back then, or your recollection of that, but would treat him fairly based on what's in the code today. And if you feel like what's in the code today isn't consistent with what that intent was, then maybe, like you discussed last month, it's a reason to revisit it and perhaps make some modifications. Nonetheless, you know, our client very much doesn't want to be seen as someone trying to skirt the rules. He wants to comply, and if there are changes that could be made to address that concern, he very much wants to. And I will say that it's very much his intent to maintain this as a farm. And as we talked about last week, or last month, the farm has already been subdivided. It was subdivided before he purchased it. There's a number of lots. You know, the easiest thing to do would be to sell those lots off, develop them with houses, make lots of money. He doesn't want to do that. He wants to keep it a farm. You know, having the farm-based recreation, which allows a certain number of wedding events per year, you know, it's not going to allow him to quit his day job. It's not going to change his life. It's just a way to help carry the farm, to keep it agricultural, to allow him to help offset taxes, insurance, property maintenance, those things. And I think that is entirely consistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan, which would certainly want to preserve these open spaces. And so that's really what he's trying to do. Again, we went through the criteria. I think we demonstrated compliance, but Mr. Council, I think, and perhaps others, hope to see more. And we weren't really sure when we left the meeting last month, what we could do to do something more, but an opportunity did present itself, and I'm happy to report that I think there's been a change that I hope will give the commission some comfort and feel like this application now aligns better with the intent of the provisions. And specifically what happened is I was contacted by Lisa Gezzi, who obviously the commission knows well. And Lisa, you may or may not know this, but she's a master beekeeper, and she's very involved with the Maryland State Beekeeping Association. And certainly the commission will know that beekeeping is sort of a critical to agriculture, right? And that farmers rely on bees to provide those pollination services that make agriculture possible. And so Lisa's organization is all about promoting, raising awareness and appreciation for those services. And so what Lisa proposed, I think she had talked to Chip actually and understood what we were proposing, and what she proposed to us to supplement our application would be for her and her organization to actually establish 2 bee colonies on the property and then invite members of the public onto the property to learn about beekeeping, to raise awareness and appreciation for the bees and what they do for agriculture and the sort of synergy between those 2 things. And so Brad Beebe has talked at some length with Lisa, and they've reached an agreement where she's going to do that. And so we think that's very exciting and a development in the application. You know, that would be in addition to the things that we discussed last meeting, but we think that hopefully better aligns with the intent that Mr. Council described, in that it's, you know, it's more of a permanent, ongoing thing where members of the public can come onto the property, learn about bees, learn about agriculture, interact with those things, and even, you know, I think there's an opportunity for some marketing of some products, you know, honey, beeswax, those things Lisa talks about. And I do have a letter that describes that. Can I just pass this out?
Yes, please.
And we did upload, Danny uploaded this morning to OpenGov.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you've seen this, but it basically just outlines what I
Thanks.
just described.
Thank you.
So with that, I mean, again, we feel like we complied before, and we certainly feel like with this supplement, we still comply with the requirements, and we'd ask for site plan approval. I did want to just address, I know you received a letter from a neighbor regarding some concerns about traffic on Bender's Lane. Certainly the BBs are, you know, want to make sure that they're good neighbors. And so what they've done is to address those concerns, is they've added some signage and some speed bumps to Bender's Lane that they think will help address that. I'm sorry, we only have one copy, but if I could just pass this around, you can look at it, and we can give it to the staff for the record. But those are measures that they've already implemented.
Those are also uploaded to OpenGov.
Oh, yeah, we also uploaded those pictures. My last comment about the roadway, please recall, I know Mr. Murtaugh's not here today, but at last meeting, he did confirm that he thought the road was adequate to support this use without those changes, so those are supplements to that.
When did he do these, Zach?
I don't know for sure. I thought it was in response to the prior comments. They received comments on their short-term rental application, I believe, from this adjacent property owner as well, and I think that these were put in place in response to that, and then they submitted a subsequent letter for this application.
Which, remember, the short-term rental is a separate parcel,
Right.
but accessed using the same land.
That's right.
And I think it's been within the last month, I think, that they've added these.
Okay.
Recently.
Anything else?
No, sir. I'm happy to answer your questions. Oh, I did want to say, I apologize, Mr. Beebe wasn't able to be here this week. I obviously heard from him
Sure.
last month, and he had a business conflict, but
Sure.
he's, yeah.
Thank you. Any comments from the general public? Questions or comments? Commissioner Speeds?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, Zach, and I believe without adding the Bs, I would probably been, my vote would have probably been that at some point we would have had to pass that, because how the code reads, it is. He's within the code, and if my comments came off as saying that I thought he was trying to come in the back door, I apologize for
Oh,
that.
no, not at all.
Yeah, more of my comment was that I don't want that to happen. And since he's, like, we've had other things come up, that when you're the precedent setter for, new code or policy as the kind of environment changes in the county, that stuff kind of makes us nervous. So I'm in favor of this, and I really appreciate the effort of him going out and trying to make this more appetizing to myself and what other commissioner was not comfortable with it. My comment will be just to say that, we as a planning commission and the planning team should just mention to the council if this is something that they want to address, because this code is really not like what Paul Spees wishes the code to read or what Paul Spees is intent of the code to be. But, my kind of view of when we were doing that code was to be for the working farm or the working, whatever the main use of that property was the main profit driver, and the supplement of these activities was to supplement that what was happening there as the main enterprise. I think how it's written and how it looks now, once I started reading it clear and looking at it from like your eyes, Zach, and your customer's eyes, I do think it's a can of worms where we set up an opportunity for the farming and what we call the main activity to by far be nowhere near the breadwinner of that property. That being the supplement that we're adding is going to become the main profit driver of that property. And again, since the code is not the Paul Spees code, and the intent, my intent is not what the code is intent to be, I do think we should just mention to the council and the county to say, we may want to look at this and really see what was everyone's intent. Because my intent would be to have a profit driver that is agriculture and an operation, and then to give that young farm family or next generation farm family the ability to supplement their operation with other activities. My family's involved in something like this. I see the county and other opportunities. Like my intent, and I wouldn't want to see a whole bunch of multiple opportunities pop up where the main profit driver is weddings, parties, bar mitzvahs, things like that. I mean, my vision of it was, it's hard to be a young farmer. It's hard to start out in the industry. It's hard to maintain organic, but if we gave them an opportunity to supplement that income with something, then I could see more opportunities in the industry that I love and support. So that's a long-winded statement, but my point is, I would come around. I really appreciate the efforts that you took to make this work. It's not your client's fault, and I didn't mean to intend that it was his fault or anything negative. But I am concerned about the precedent, and I just think we should look at it. And if everybody's like, "No, hell, that's what we wanted," great. That's what the county wants. Good. But I do think it's something moving forward. Just making a comment. If people want to look at it, I think we should look at it and get any input from people. And that's end of my comments. But I did talk to Chip Council on this and last night on the phone, and we had kind of the same kind of concerns, and he's along the same lines. But you know, his statement is that, you know, with these additions, he's very appreciative for Mr. Beebe and yourself, to not just saying, well, it says it in the code, you need to pass it because it works in the code, but you went out and made the effort to really make this more appeasing. So he said, you know, he probably would have had to vote for it without any changes, but with the changes, he's comfortable with it. And he's not here, and it doesn't count as a vote, but he said he wanted me to mention to the other commissioners and that he would have voted positive for this if he was here.
Thank you for that. That's-
Mr. Boycourt.
Well said, Paul. I agree with everything you said, and it's especially helpful since you're farmer A and B, you run events like this, so it means a lot, and I appreciate it, and I agree with everything you're saying. In addition, Zach, I think your point about keeping this in farming versus developing is a strong one for me. That's still not written in law, but they can do that tomorrow, your client, but that makes me comfortable. The bees are, pardon me, a bit of a sweetener, but it's not. Sorry. As a beekeeper, they're not enough. That's not enough, but I appreciate that. So I think that my opinion is almost exactly Chip's opinion, and I thank you for bringing that
Paul's
forward.
opinion.
No, but
And Chip's also,
yeah, but he brought Chip's opinion. My opinion also agrees with what Paul said completely. So this is good.
I agree with my fellow commissioners here. I think that the effort to do a little bit more is very well received, and I think that, you know, one of our main tasks is to maintain the rural nature of our community and our county, and clearly the highest and best use of that is to subdivide it, plant a bunch of grass, and build a bunch of houses, and we're not going to do that. So. I agree with everything that's been said thus far. I appreciate the efforts of Mr. Beebe and you, and that's all I have.
One thing I want to add quickly is that in suggesting, I would feel more comfortable, given what I perceive the intent of the discussion with the county council, if this were a special exception, so that it could go to the Board of Appeals. On the other hand, they'd have the same criteria, so having a little more statement with regard to having the main profit center coming from farming, that's a helpful, it states it clearly, however you state that, this is an ancillary benefit to the farmer as opposed to the other way around. So anyway, I think we ought to pursue that with the county council.
Thank you. I think everything that needs to be said has basically been said. Mr. Spees summed things up very well. Unfortunately, Commissioner Council couldn't be here because he did feel very strongly about this. He, in agreement with what Commissioner Boycourt said, he thinks setting a precedent is not a good thing. It looks like we're probably going to have to because that's the way it is written. And we do appreciate the efforts that have been made. The speed bumps, the bees, big thing, make it a little more agriculture, but the speed bumps, the signage, just to address some concerns. And everyone else has summed it up well, so I have nothing more to say. Do we have a motion on the floor?
I move that we approve the major site plan for Brad and Lisa Beebe at 22020 Bender's Lane, Sherwood, Maryland, 21665, with all staff conditions being complied with and the addition of the support letter of the bees and the educational process that the bees add to the motion, or the site plan.
I second it.
Okay, we've had a motion by Commissioner Spees, a second by Commissioner Boycourt. We'll call for the vote. Commissioner Spees?
Aye.
Mr. Boycourt?
Aye.
Mr. Corson?
Aye.
I will vote aye as well.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you to job well done.
Thank you.
Representing your client.
Report for this one. So do I read the
All right, next, under new business, Arthur Dale. a minor variance to construct a landing or sliding glass door in the backyard setback.
Oh, you don't need to, unless, not if there's anything. That's
Thank
what
you,
I
sir.
would
Would
say.
you announce who you are and sign in, please?
You know, okay.
Oh,
Okay,
I'll fill the rest of it out in a minute. My name is Arthur Vale. I'm the owner of the house on 5579 Trafalgar Circle on Tillman. I think everything's stated, and I assume that you guys have the same thing that I do. The builder, when he built the house, I have a corner lot. It's a 9-degree lot.
no, that's okay, go ahead.
Okay, I don't have to go through all that?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I have a corner lot, you can see it on the drawing. The builder, when he built the house, I have two sidelines, or two side property lines. I do not have a back property line, however, I have a back of a house. And they put sliding glass doors on the back, to which it's 13 foot to the setback. The property also slopes down for rainwater runoff and what have you. So I know I can put steps up, but I'm not comfortable putting steps going out a slider because of somebody falling out. I have grandchildren and such. So I would like to put a 4.5 by 9 foot landing, if you want to call it a deck, whatever you want to call it, out the back with steps to the side that access my side property. And in doing that, I have 1.5 foot into the setback. So rather than the 10-foot setback, I'm requesting it reduced to 8.5 in that area. That's pretty much the synopsis of it.
Staff, please.
Yes, the staff does support the minor variance, and the application is ready for action.
Okay. Any conditions or anything?
Just standard conditions that he would have to,
The building permit process.
to follow the building permit process with all the timelines and.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from the general public?
I'm the only
Hearing
chair.
none. Mr. Spees?
No objection from the neighbor, or, I don't, from the aerial picture, it just looks like I don't see a home or anything that,
I don't believe we received any
It
correspondence.
faces the backyard
Yeah.
of my other neighbor, and it also, there's a pond with a fence there. I'm close to that, but I mean, it's,
I mean, if there was a pool or a hot tub right on the other side of the fence, maybe I would, be like, that's kind of, and getting a little close to the property line, but looking at the aerial and seeing where you're putting this deck, I don't have any objections. I think this is a clear one for me.
Mr. Borkort?
Absolutely not. This seems very straightforward.
Mr. Corson?
I agree.
I have no issues either, so at this time, we can call for a motion.
I move the planning commission recommend approval of the minor variance MVAR 24-2 for Arthur Vale Jr. at 5579 Trafalgar Circle, Tillman, Maryland, subject to staff conditions.
Second.
We have a motion to recommend approval. Commissioner Corson, we have a second by Commissioner Boycourt. Call for the vote. Commissioner Corson?
Aye.
Mr. Boycourt?
Aye.
Mr. Spees?
Aye.
I will vote aye as well. Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Okay, moving right along, it looks like Royal Oak LLC has been postponed. And Talbot County's 347, plus Amendment 1, plus Amendment 2, plus 348, and Amendment 1 to 348 have all been postponed. Is there anything, other discussion items, staff matters?
I want to address all the postponed items with regard to the resolutions. With poor planning, I'm not going to be at the April meeting, potentially for an hour or so. And the question is, and I've talked to Brendan about this, whether in fact the votes are going to come up, whether I can participate and vote on some of these issues or not. I would rather, but that's up to my fellow commissioners. So we'll see what happens.
So you're gonna be gone for an hour from the meeting, not,
I can be here for an hour, but
you can be here for an
yeah,
hour?
otherwise it's gonna cost me $1,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's assume that.
Yeah, no,
It turns out, I mean, the details are that I'm going to see the family in Texas, but because it's also the solar eclipse, that the airlines have jacked their prices up, and
yes,
anyway, so I can't change it.
no.
I love you guys, but $1,000 is a lot of money.
Exactly, exactly.
Anyway, I just want to let you know and see whether, I mean, we don't know exactly when these are coming up, but the assumption is they will come up next go round. But
My take on this would be for the issues that are coming up, not that we are conflicting opinions, but you speak on a side of these that's a little different than mine. So I would recommend we do whatever we can to either let us move it to where all 5 of us could be here, or push it back, because for the rest of the county, I think Mr. Boycourt's opinion is very important to a lot of people, and I wouldn't want to pass it or not pass it without him being here.
Well, these are all pretty significant issues too,
I
that I think
appreciate it,
everybody
Paul.
should be here.
That's a nice thing to say. If we do postpone it, I would recommend, but it's another pain, that we have a meeting that does, an interim meeting that wouldn't allow, wouldn't
Make it
require us to wait a whole
month.
month.
Yes.
In which case it's a pain for you guys and everybody else,
Yeah.
but I appreciate that, but.
No, this is one that is very important to the county and its residents.
Yep.
And to not have someone here that's a little bit of a different opinion of my own, I think would be a dishonest way
Well, I'm
not
not sure
dishonest,
about-
but it wouldn't be, like, this has been in front of us for a while, which packs the room, and you represent and very well a lot of people's opinion on that, and having a final vote on something that's been in front of us 4 times without you here would be, like,
Well, not-
I don't
not
know the
just
right
Bill,
word, just not,
but
it doesn't sit well.
A full commission period would be for something this important.
I agree.
It's a,
I think you gotta have everybody
Yeah,
here.
No,
the
except for
vote.
me. If you ever want to bring this up,
no, you and I can go somewhere, we can let the 3 of us.
and I'll high five you the next time I see
Yes.
all 4 of you.
Well, I appreciate it, but I hope to, yeah. And I'll tell you all what I've been to one solar eclipse total back in 1970, and they are pretty exciting, I have to say, so I'll come back and report on it.
I'm going to see it up in Rochester,
All right.
so I'll come back and report it as well.
I didn't know anything about it, so I'll be
No,
here.
yeah.
What flexibility do we have to adjust meetings by a day or a week?
I think as long as sufficient notice is given in preparation of that meeting, meaning that the meeting is posted in the adequate fashions that's required by the code, we can certainly alter that meeting or call for an additional meeting on top of our regularly scheduled meeting to consider these items. I will say, in looking at our timeline, our meeting for April is set for April the 3rd. I believe the first council meeting of April would be the 9th. So I think they're in hopes that they'll be able to have a recommendation from you all on these resolutions, as well as the new pending resolution that's been introduced, so that they can take action on them at that time. So if there's a desire to consider an alternative date for a meeting, I don't know if you all want to work that out amongst each other, where I can send out an email and we can confirm dates to see what best fits everyone's schedule. But if we find a date either towards the end of March or that beginning week of April on a separate date, we can certainly facilitate posting that agenda to the public and ensuring that we get it out and get the notice out in sufficient time for people to be made aware of that change of date, as well as trying, I do want to make sure we secure this room, since it has the audio and visual that we'll need for the recording of that meeting. So if you'd like to, we can facilitate coordinating that after today. I understand Chip's out, so I know, nailing down a date and time might be a little challenging at this very moment, but we could leave that on the record that we will determine a future date and time to be scheduled prior to.
What are your travel plans?
I'm leaving on the day of the meeting, and that's why the suggestion, I can be here for an hour, and then I have to take off at the airport.
How about Tuesday,
I'm just looking at that, that's actually sounding,
Tuesday the 2nd?
that sounded pretty good to me, but let me just check my calendar.
I
Tuesday
think whatever
the
we do,
2nd.
we probably should communicate the reason why.
Because the 8th.
Absolutely.
The 8th would be right the day before the meeting, and if there's any kind of,
Yeah,
that
if
would be a
they're,
little tight.
sure. And I think the Public Works Advisory Board, I don't know the specified date of their meeting, but they're either I think they're the week of March 18th or March 11th, so we can keep that in mind, maybe planning for either the last week of March, or if the 2nd does suit everyone's schedule in April, we could also look at that as well as a potential option.
The last week of March would be more convenient for me,
Okay.
but that's, I got openings. The last week of March, I got lots of openings.
And that would give us sufficient time, if we confirm that by next Monday, to get an agenda posted on our website, as well as an agenda posted in the paper as we normally do for our regularly scheduled meeting. So we'll certainly, if that's the case and we do confirm with Chip and we will have the full commission here, we'll do our best to advertise that and get that out to the general public so that they're aware of that as well.
I would prefer the 2nd if
The
we
2nd?
can.
Yeah, I would too.
That week of the, last week of March.
Okay.
But if there's, just let me know. I mean, I've got plenty of time to move some things around. I'd have to move some things, but the 2nd would be the best for me.
Okay. I can contact you each individually and reach out to Chip as well to get his availability. If everyone's available on the 2nd and we can facilitate that, I'll send a confirmatory email out to you all and we'll work out the scheduling and the posting of that. And I'll also make the council aware of that so they can announce it in their next meeting as well, so the general
Thank you,
public will know.
appreciate it.
Yeah, just send us some emails. Question for Rebecca. We have a plethora of resolutions before us. We have 338, which is not before us, but that's sitting at the council, not acted upon. So we have 347 and its amendments, we have 348 and its amendment, and then we have 353 or whatever it was that came out. And they all deal with the same question, but they all, questions, topic, yes, but they all deal with them in different ways. So, assuming we have our special meeting, and in the end, we say that everything is consistent with the plan,
Or nothing is.
or nothing is.
Okay.
But if we say everything is, but then does the council vote? They don't have to vote on anything. They can choose what they want to vote on, I assume,
Correct.
out of that. And so they could, they could choose to 353, vote on it, pass it, or not, or whatever. Or they could choose out of all of these things, just 347 and just 348, and pass those without the amendments, or would they have to be with the amendments?
So all of that would be speculation.
Yes.
I would suggest you.
This is all speculation.
Yeah, I would suggest you concentrate on the job in front of you to find whether they're consistent or not consistent, and then send them
Okay.
forward. Because we can't,
No, we don't know how.
We
they're
don't know.
doing it. I'm just asking, are they able to
yeah, there
individually?
are plenty of resolutions in Talbot County that have never been acted on.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
For something to pass, do we have to find it consistent? Or is that just like a gold star stamped on it? I probably should know this, but,
That's an interesting question. Yeah, so the environment article, I mean, they're looking for your consistency, for you to find consistent. If you found it non-consistent, the council really can't move on it. Well, I shouldn't say that, but they want you, the law wants the planning commission to find it consistent.
Okay.
You're the first gatekeeper. So, I don't know if it's been challenged, or if it gets challenged, you know what I mean, in other jurisdictions, so there might be some examples of that, but,
Thank you for asking, because my only understanding was, I have the same uncertainty in my many years, and that the one thing that I knew that we had establishes sort of a more certainty is one, with the final word on site plan review. And secondly, when it comes to modification of the Comprehensive Water and Sewer Act, that is required that we have.
Right. I don't know if any legislative body has ever just said, well, they didn't find it consistent, but we do. I don't know if that's ever happened, or if they do, how it gets, when it gets challenged, what happens, but the environment article, there's steps, and you're the first threshold, and if you don't find it consistent, you don't find it consistent.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, under discussion items?
I think just as a matter of discussion, I know Commissioner Spies had brought it up and alluded to the idea of consideration of possibly entertaining the amendment to the language for farm-based recreational uses just based off of the process and how he saw the process working for a type of site plan or a type of use like that. The Planning Commission has the ability to offer and submit text amendments to the County Council, and I know we talked about the idea of possibly considering that in the future, and I know you made that more as a general comment, but if there is a desire of the Planning Commission to entertain or to have conversation with the County Council of such a text amendment for that specific use, we were just kind of looking at the staff level. Is there direction there for us to provide feedback to the County Council saying that you all were looking into consideration of it, or would you prompt us to move forward with possibly getting something together for your consideration that could then be submitted to the council? We didn't want to leave that door open if there was something on the table that you all wanted to pursue further as far as the land use itself goes.
I'm not saying this tongue-in-cheek. I'm saying it, I think if there was an appetite for others in the county that there was a discomfort level on this, then I would say task you guys with coming up with something. But if we drafted something new to the code every time I disagreed with something, I think that would probably not be the right process or steps, because it's just my opinion. But if there is an appetite in the greater public or concern from the council, then I would definitely be behind it and want to put some input in on it. But if people are like, it's serving its purpose, and there's going to be a few outliers that we're not concerned about, then I don't want to task you guys with something that doesn't have legs to go past me. So if there's an appetite from the community or the council, then I would say that's great. But I don't want to give you guys work that appeases. I'm like, yeah, we tried, nothing. But if there's an appetite for it, then that I would appreciate that.
It's probably something that should be clarified between now and the time we do the update to the comp plan. I mean, it's probably something that with the way the code is written, the way it's written, that's exactly what the issue came about now. So if there's a way to bridge that gap to sort of clarify and or make it more of a special exception, to get the true feeling and meaning of what the intention of that was. So this doesn't, I don't anticipate the floodgates opening and everybody going to put in wedding venues at farms, but I think there might be some language or something that we can do to sort of slow that down a little bit, at least until we can address it in the comprehensive plan.
I wasn't worried, as I think Paul wasn't either, from what he said about the floodgates coming. It was just uncomfortable to have the first one come in and work the letter of the law, and that was probably not the intent. And so I agree that if we do something without a major effort, and our fallback is the update of the ordinances after the comprehensive plan. But I don't think we ought to forget about it. So that maybe schlepping along and doing something now would be better. So maybe
the concept is one that's really hot. It's a hot item right now. I deal with this in my business all day, every day, with somebody who wants to come down and set up some sort of wedding venue.
Well, that's saying something. Right?
That's sort of the reason why I said, hey, let's put something in place now to protect against this, or at least clarify it, because it is something that I see almost weekly. I've got certain properties that I represent that I get 5 calls a week wanting to, with all these great ideas to come do a wedding venue. Can't do it there, but, the appetite is there. I mean,
Sure.
and from big people, little people, national firms, I mean, it's a thing. So,
It's consistent with the requests from the Oaks that we.
that's correct.
And it's also consistent, I'm on the board, I was on the board of the Maritime Museum, and a huge, a lot of their consideration about operations in the museum is because they make a lot of money from weddings.
Yes, they do.
So-
And again, we deal with stuff like this, not on wedding venues, other things. We deal with some things that come up that the given project is 100% fine. Like, I don't have any, I don't think Mr. Beebe and his bees and hay rides are gonna cause that neighborhood an issue. But it's like the landscaper that was an ideal project on the 8 acres, but he didn't have enough land and but that's precedent setting. If you allow that, there could be a property right in the middle of a community where it doesn't fit at all. And that's kind of my concern about this. Like, I'm not concerned, I would be shocked if at any time in the near future we had an issue with that project.
I agree with you.
I do see a situation where you could have almost identical property that's in a much different situation, and a client or an owner that has a much different intent that could become a major issue for the county.
Or trying to make it fit, and it says, well, checks the boxes. Well, this is not.
They
This is
make
not
it
what we
fit, and all of a
intended to
sudden they
do.
go from 12, and all of a sudden we find out they're doing 15, and it's 400.
You're classifying things as other things, and well, it's not a wedding, but it's an agricultural extravaganza.
So-
Wait a minute.
So really, I didn't mean to, because I do think Zach thought, when I said the meeting ago that I was pointing just to them about coming in, the back door instead of, being straight. I don't mean that for that project. I do think the precedent is set now, and I do think there is an opportunity as the language is written that makes me nervous. And if other people are nervous about it, then address it. But if everybody else is like, well, we're keeping it a farm, that's our number one goal, and the legs aren't there to make it go further, then it doesn't go further. But for me, I do have a concern.
I do want to point out the staff said the same thing you did. It didn't use the term back door, but they basically said they're trying to squeeze it.
To get the wedding,
And stretch the intent.
Right.
So I guess to maybe summarize like what you're talking about here and to move that thought process forward, maybe we can go ahead with the drafting of a memorandum, kind of summarizing the discussions you all had here. I can provide that to you all for your review and comment, and Rebecca and I can look over that, finalize it, forward it to the county council, and if they have an appetite to pursue it in any form or fashion, we can leave that up to them.
Yeah, the main thing to me, in my opinion, is to strengthen the intent that Paul talked about, is having this is an auxiliary benefit to the farmer as opposed to the driver.
Right, the driver.
And that's a way of talking about that. He had a lot of good words. That's on tape.
Yes.
All right, so I'll start working on that. I'll go back and review the discussions that we had here and just make sure that I capture kind of all of what was spoken on. And from there, obviously, I'll send it back to you all, and hopefully we can get that up to the council for their consideration as well.
Great, thank you.
I have a question on this that I didn't know and couldn't find. So, could someone rent a piece of property and keep it in agriculture and run a wedding venue or operation, or do they need to be the primary owner of the property?
The code language doesn't specify that they have to be the primary owner, but because it's an accessory use, ancillary to a primary use, you would have to be the one conducting the primary use to be able to also then conduct the accessory
So
use.
if you're doing so if I'm renting and I'm running the primary, say it was a goat farm, and I'm the one renting the farm and managing the goats, and then, one of the other buildings I wanted to start doing, goat yoga.
I was just about to suggest
So
that.
would I be approved? Would I be as the renter allowed to do that?
So long as you had permission to make application on behalf of the property owner and you were the person that was the primary I guess.
That becomes a concern of
Yeah,
mine.
slippery slope there.
And again, those are things to consider if we decide, or the council decides that they want to refine that language further. I do know the additional discussion behind that when it was built into the code was that we have an event venue use that's accessory to agriculture that doesn't limit the amount of events that you can have related to weddings and special events, which is above and beyond this, that has further stipulations restricting what you have to have on the property in order to obtain that, which is also, I believe, by special exception. And this was kind of like that happy medium of maybe 12 events isn't going to make your whole business venue an operation, so it'll never be the primary use or the primary driver of that property. But we see now, obviously, there are concerns and interests in it, so it may be worth reconsidering. But I think that was the initial discussion around it, was 12 was really that threshold of where the council agreed at the time that it wasn't going to be the primary use of the property if somebody were to be allowed to do 12 events, because originally you're permitted to do 6 accessory events in the code by right for those agricultural properties, whether they be weddings or what have you, but upping it to 12 and then getting the site plan approval was the added, I guess, level of review from the planning commission's perspective. But clearly we can see that now that that's been a desire to be utilized in a form or fashion, that maybe it does need further refinement.
Thanks.
Thank you. If needful refinement is, I think, a good way of putting it.
I will do my best to expedite that and get that to you all for your review.
Thank you. Anything else? Do you have any staff matters?
No staff matters, no work sessions planned, and I'll leave you to commission matters if you have anything else.
Any commission matters?
We've addressed the one that was most
Yes.
important to me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Then we have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it looks like we're adjourning at 9:47. Thank you.
Be able to make my early flight. You guys are good.